There's a purpose to the feel of the brakes and the throttle response and the gear change, and it's a Ferrari feel, which means this car feels like a supercar and not like a four-door saloon. What I love, though, is that when you've finished being 12 years old and you just want to go home, it settles down and becomes a quiet and comfortable whooshmobile. Listen. 6th gear hardly makes any noise at all. After a hard day in the office, you sit here on this comfy chair surrounded by all this leather and chrome and all these electrical gadgets, and you think, yeah, I've got a Maserati. Life's good. After a while, you even start to like the way it looks. And because Bono has bought one, it's cool too. The best thing about this car, though, is its price. You'd imagine, because it's a Ferrari and then some, that it would cost Ferrari money and then some. But at £82,000, it's no more expensive than a big Jag or Merc. This car, then, is definitely going to heaven. This, on the other hand, isn't. It is, of course, a Renault Espace, which they say is an MPV, a multi-purpose vehicle. What do they mean by that? I mean, the Maserati, that's a four-door saloon and a Ferrari. What two things can this do? Is it a supercar? No. Does it rip your face off with lightning acceleration? Not even close. Is it elegant? Is it apart? Light on fuel? Does it have the carrying capacity of a van? No. If you drive round in one of these with your nuclear children fastened to their individual seats, what are you saying about yourself? I'm not interested in style or performance or looks or excitement. I've done my breeding, I've served my biological purpose, and now I'm waiting to die. Multi-purpose vehicle, my bottom. But with a bit of nous, I think it could be. Right, guys, can I pinch some of you just to finish this project off? Take the roof off. Watch this. Watch this. Ready? Step. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Now, that's what I call a multi-purpose vehicle. A 7-seater and a convertible. It makes you wonder, why has no car firm in the world thought to do this before? Well, one of the reasons is it's not very good, if I'm honest. You can actually feel the whole thing flexing. Feels like it's made of fruit. Like it's going to come apart at any moment. No, it has. It has. Oh dear. No. You see, you can't make a silk person out of cows here at all. All people carriers are going to hell. As we've just seen, it's not easy turning a hardtop car into a convertible. Even Aston Martin has struggled. Here's what they've come up with: a DB9 Volante. Obviously, the roof job has had a bit of an effect on rear legroom. There isn't any. And that's because the roof, of course, has to fold into a sort of cubby hole here. Also, this is slightly heavier than the coupe, and if you put the two cars side by side, which conveniently we have done, you have to say the hardtop's prettier. But you know what? I am nitpicking here, really. It feels exactly like the coupe, only when you go really fast, on a really windy day, can you start to feel the canvas roof starting to flap a little bit. And it couldn't have fitted a Mercedes-style tin-top folding roof, because that would have spoiled the looks even more. It would have added more weight as well. And anyway, let's be honest, it's not like folding the soft top away is a hardship. Right, now let's find out what alfresco Aston motoring is like. things first, with the roof down and the sun out, I can't make out any of the writing on any of those buttons. And that means I can't operate the radio, and I don't care, because what I want to listen to is this. I know that's an active exhaust. I know the noise is fake, and I don't care. The original source of this sound is a 6-litre V12, which churns out 450 brake horsepower, and it's fitted to a flappy paddle gearbox that actually works. And that's because, unlike all the others, this one isn't a manual, it's an automatic. It still blips on the down changes, listen. So you still feel like Michael Schumacher, but there's no jerkiness at all. Silky smooth. And when you're bored with playing around, you just put it in D and leave it alone. That seems to suit this car, because it really is a cruiser. The top speed has been limited to 165. That's miles slower than the coupe. Why have they done that? Well, in case you shred the roof. I noticed, for instance, that the button here for turning the traction control off is broken. And normally that would be annoying. But you know, in this it just isn't, because I don't want to do big power slides and smoke the tyres any more than I'd want to play a Steinway grand piano with a sledgehammer. What I want to do in this is waft and cruise. That said, when you work out the traction control button isn't broken at all and you are pressing it all wrong, the Aston is quite good at going mental. It's not as good as the hardtop. It's not as positive, and on a rough road, you can feel the chassis flexing. It's a good car, this, for posing especially, but given the choice, I'd take the coupe every time. And now, I have to go shopping. So I shall. At a Perodua dealership, one may avail oneself of such motoring wonders as the Canary, or better still, the Calypso. And that is exactly what I've just done. I have bought an EX model in what they call spackling silver. I think they mean sparkling silver. You really have to think of this as some kind of social service. Because I bought this car, it means you can't. Ever. Anyway, while we're waiting for the car to be ready, let's get back to the action. Welcome to the Range Rover Sport. This actually is going to be a test with a difference, because I've put 1 gallon of fuel in the tank, and we're going to see how far we can get before it's all used up, and we splutter to a halt. You see, under the bonnet we have Jaguar's supercharged 4.2-litre V8, which has been retuned to give less power, but more torque. Then, under the car, we have the double chassis system first seen on the Discovery. So, although they call it a Range Rover, it isn't really. It's a beefed-up, squatted-down Range Rover look-alike on Discovery and Jaguar foundations. And that isn't really important right now. What is important is the fact it weighs 2.5 tons and has a V8 which churns out 390 brake horsepower and 410 foot-pounds of torque. That's such a thirsty combination we've probably used half a gallon already. Of course, the Sport, despite its farmyard underpinnings, isn't really designed to go off-road. It can, in the same way the Queen can dance the funky chicken. It just doesn't seem right somehow. Basically, it's not really a Land Rover. It's more a high-riding GT car. It'll do 0 to 60 in 7 seconds, and it's limited to 140, because any faster, and the tyres would burst. It even feels like a GT car in here, because in a normal Range Rover, you have to reach down to operate all the controls, but in this, they've raised the centre console, so I feel cocooned, like I'm in a cockpit. Then there's the steering. In most off-road cars, the engineers deliberately make it as woolly as a sheep so it doesn't jiggle around when you're off-road and wrench your thumbs off. But in this, well, it's a Jag system, so it's quick and sharp and brilliant. You don't even need to slow down that much for corners because it's got hydraulic roll bars to keep the body flat when you're going around bends. And the great thing about using hydraulics is that unlike big metal anti-roll bars, the car isn't uncomfortable when you're just going along normally, like this. It's only hard when it wants to be, like now. actually mistake this for a hot hatchback. I mean, you've got quite a lot of understeer, and the traction control, even when you turn it off, isn't actually off. But it's not bad, really. I mean, it really isn't. This really is a great car, because it manages to be tall and sporty, which is a trick I never managed to pull off. And, oh, hang on a minute. Hang on. We're out! We're out! Yep, that's it, I'm afraid. After just 8 miles, it's out of juice. You're going to need a lot of money to run one of these things, but even after a short drive, I can tell it's worth every single burned-up penny. The only trouble is that it's still not as good as the Daddy. It's not as majestic. If you need 4-wheel drive for the trip to the pearly gates, get the real deal. Sure, for hammering down a country lane, really going for it, you've got to have the Sport, but for everything else, the old proper Range Rover is better. I mean, it has this split-folding tailgate, which I love, and you can have this now with the supercharged Jag engine. Oh, God. When this was first shown at the Geneva Motor Show, the great Italian designer Giugiaro came onto the Triumph stand to have a look, and everybody stood with bated breath waiting for his pronouncement. To start with, though, he didn't say anything. He just looked at the profile, took it all in. Then he walked round the back. Everybody's still waiting to hear what he'd have to say. When he got here, he actually said, "Oh my God, they've done the same thing on this side as well." The TR7 really was the first car ever to be modelled on a piece of cheese. But then at least that's better than Ford, which modelled one of its cars on a wide-mouthed frog. As you can see, the TR7 has now been joined by the Ford Scorpio. So what we have here are 2 of the ugliest cars ever made, and the basis for a rather good game that I've just thought of. All we need to complete the picture is a long straight, which we have, 2 jousting poles, which are here, and a couple of knights. I think you can probably see where this is going. Okay, here we go. Building up speed. That's trying to build up speed. First round. Oh, yes, the Triumph is triumphant. The Ford ends come off. Oh, dear. Now, here we go. Second run. Second run, and it's going to be... Oh, it's 1-1! It's 1-1! The Ford's in one piece. Oops. Oh, dear. And so to the good nights I say good night. And to the 2 cars I say good riddance. Speaking of which, joy of joys, the Perodua Calisa that I ordered earlier is now ready for collection. I haven't bothered with a warranty or a full tank of petrol, and I've only got 1 day's insurance. But anyway, the time has come. I'm going to go in there now and pick it up. And here it is, brand spanking new with 85 miles on the clock. Probably see all the salesmen over there in the window wondering what on earth is going on. Well, check this out, boys. That is for the biggest load of unimaginative junk ever. This is just a white good. It's just built with no soul, no flair, no passion, like a fridge or a washing machine. And this is for every time I've caught a car like you dawdling around at junctions indicating left and then going right. I wonder if you could ever get bored with doing this. No, I don't think you could. Oh yes, that's much better. Okay. Ooh. There we are. What I don't like about all these Korean and Malaysian cars is that you get a sense they were designed not by one man who wanted to make a great car, but by a corporation that simply wanted to make money. Because of this car's sins, it will soon be tortured to death. There's going to be some hanging, quite a bit of drawing, but mostly there's going to be a lot of quartering. For now, though, I want to look at the BMW M5. The original came out of nowhere. BMW simply slotted a 286 brake horsepower straight six engine into its boxy old 5 Series and put it on sale. 1 minute there was no M5 in the world, and then with no warning, there was. To the casual eye, it looked the same as the 2-litre model my dad had. But trust me on this, it wasn't. I remember the first time I drove one of these things. I was living in London at the time, and one Sunday morning I thought, I'll take it for a blast down the A3 to see what it's like. And I ended up at Land's End, and I was actually cross that I'd run out of landmass. I wanted to just keep on going forever. It was just so together and so right and so fast. And it was the same story with the ones that came afterwards. They were all quietly styled monsters. Things, however, have gone a bit awry with the new one. First of all, it's modelled on the new 5 Series, which isn't quietly styled at all. It's a big, ungainly thing with a lardy backside and the elegance of an abattoir. And it doesn't exactly hide its lights under a bushel. The fat exhausts and the badges let everyone know that this is an M5, and not some software bloke's runabout. Then there's the sheer complication of driving the thing. I mean, you've got 11 settings for the gearbox. 11? What's that all about? There's 5 here, 5 options for how ferocious you want the change action to be. There's 3 here for how you want your differential to be set up. That one just seems to make the car uncomfortable, that's all it does. Then there's like 500 settings for the seat, and that's before you get into the iDrive system. And on this, just to give you an example, you can choose how long you want the lights to stay on after you turn the engine off. You can even choose, and I'm not joking, how many brake horsepowers you want from the engine. Normally it hands over 400, which isn't enough to make up for the time you spent choosing how big a range you want on the radar-guided cruise control. There really is much to hate about this car. The indicators won't self-cancel properly, the gearbox is jerky when you're driving around town at slow speeds, the satellite navigation woman will not shut up, talks all over your favourite radio station that you haven't been able to find anyway, actually, because it's all far too complicated. The new M5, then, can drive a man mad. After a week, you'd want to stab Bill Gates in the heart. Yes, it's a techno showcase, but I prefer proper engineering, like we saw earlier on the Maserati Quattroporte. What I want is one big red button somewhere in here that turns all this electronic rubbish off. Hit it, and everything is shut down. In fact, while I was looking for such a thing the other day, I inadvertently stabbed this. A little button with an M marked on it. And that changed everything. That button sharpens up the suspension, changes the diff, and changes the readout in the head-up display as well. And look at this. When you turn the steering wheel, the side bolster on the seat moves in to stop you rolling around. How cool's that? It even changes the 5-litre V10 engine. Push that button, you no longer have 400 brake horsepower, you have 507. And that makes a difference. There's no sense of slowing, even when it gets to the 155 mile an hour limiter. And without that limiter, the M5 could do 204 miles an hour. You just cannot believe you are driving a quiet, comfortable 4-door saloon, because it just isn't anymore. It is a raving, mad axe murderer. Oh. In M mode, this car is just so hard and so brutal and fast like you simply wouldn't believe. It's absolutely unbelievably good. Just so long as you keep that M button pushed. It really is very simple. Most annoying car in the world, most amazing car in the world. It's certain that this is the best M5 ever, and that means it's the best 4-door saloon ever. In fact, it might be better than that. It might even be better than the new Ferrari F430. this is it. And I'm not going to beat about the bush. It's just perfect. In fact, it's better than perfect. Perfect implies the best engineers have done the best job they can using the best materials. But this feels better than that. The steering, the brakes, the ride, the practicality, the space, the comfort. Everything is better than you could possibly imagine. And that's before we get to the engine. Maybe it doesn't howl quite like the old 360, but it's still a stupendous sound, and there's so much power. It's not a light car by any means, but the 4.3-litre V8 more than makes up for that. Any gear, any revs, put your foot down, and everything in the rearview mirror instantly becomes a dot. 0 to 60 is dealt with in 4 seconds. The top speed is 196. But the best thing about this car is the way it handles. I've got this knob on the steering wheel here, and all I do is tell it what sort of mood I'm in. That one's snow and ice, not relevant. That's normal road use, not relevant. Sport kind of firms everything up, makes everything louder. Race is more of the same, and I think that's sort of appropriate right now. So, race it is! This is incredible because it manages to be brutal and delicate all at the same time. You've got masses of mechanical grip and then electronic kind of whiz-bangery to help out when you overstep the line. Sorry, I still think this traction control cuts in too early, so let's turn it off. Holy moly! This is astonishing! The old 360 was a tricky little so-and-so at the limit, but this just isn't. These Bridgestone tyres aren't particularly brilliant, but what a car! It's got the same sort of electronic differential that you'll find in Michael Schumacher's Formula 1 car. No idea how it works, don't care. All I can tell you is, it does brilliantly. This car is amazing. Perhaps it's not the prettiest Ferrari ever made, but as a piece of engineering and as an adrenaline pump, it beggars belief. So there's the target the M5 is aiming at, and now we must discover whether it's hit or missed. To find out, we shall have a race. Now I'm going to drive the M5, which means we need somebody to drive the Ferrari, and luckily I have a pet which is perfect for the job. So it's a fat man in a four-door saloon versus a racing driver in a mid-engine Ferrari. Oh my God, I'm struggling to keep it in a straight line. I thought I'd be closer to it than that. Four-door saloon car. This isn't good. This is so twitchy. And I think that's probably the answer. Good though a saloon car can be, it'll never be as good as that. So there we are. With a Stig at the wheel, the 430's just a speck. The M5 is awesome, but awesome simply isn't good enough to beat this. It's just biblical. But would this be the Ferrari I'd take to heaven? This is the Ferrari Enzo. They only made 399 of them, and we have one here. Around a track, there's no other road car on Earth which is faster. It goes from 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds and keeps on going all the way to 218 miles an hour. It corners with barely a hint of body roll. It sounds like God gargling. It makes even the 430 look wooden and pedestrian. It has the same sort of control setup as the 430, but whereas that has a 4.3 litre V8, this has a 6 litre V12. So if you don't mind, I won't be turning the traction control off. You really do need all this electronic stuff just to keep this thing in check. Michael Schumacher, he has traction control and stuff in his Formula 1 car, and of course while this won't corner like his F1 car or brake like his F1 car, it is faster than his F1 car. To be honest, the traction control is kind of irrelevant anyway because there's so much grip. You're going to pull your face off long before the back end lets go. And there's a very good reason why it's faster. Its 6 litre V12 engine produces a simply staggering 660 brake horsepower. And the whole body, all of it, even the floor, is made from carbon fibre. It's £500,000 worth of sheer motoring perfection. Or it should be. The first problem is this. That is very quick, but I reckon the old F40 would be quicker still. And that's because, despite all the carbon fibre around here, this is too heavy. And it's too heavy because it's full of equipment you don't need. Like, for instance, a sun radiation sensor. I mean, what's that for? It also has a pump for raising and lowering the nose so it can go over speed humps. That adds more weight. And the clutch, get this, will only last for 3 full-bore standing starts. And it's not that practical either. To show you what I mean, this is Charlotte. And Charlotte has very kindly agreed to take off all her clothes, okay? Now, while she's doing that, I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to show you how much of these striptease I can see from behind the wheel. Okay. Right, I've got this little video camera to show you the problem. And look, there's the mirror, nothing. There's the side window, look, there's the view, lean right forwards, it's as far forward as I can go, nothing. Back window, nothing. So, if I can't see Charlotte, what chance do I have at a junction of seeing a bike coming? Or a car, or a bus, or even a herd of otters? As a piece of engineering, this car is a phenomenon. A wailing, screaming bullet. But what, pray, is the point of a car you simply can't use? And that brings me neatly onto this, the old Golf GTI. You see, with this, your lap dancer doesn't have to stand outside. There's room for her in the boot. The original Golf GTI was peppy, practical, cheap, and above all, huge, huge fun. I voted for this, the original Golf GTI, as the greatest car of the 20th century. And then I sat back and watched while Volkswagen set about ruining it. Over the years, the GTI became fatter and heavier until we arrived at the Mark IV, which was, well, watch this. It's a simple drag race against a Skoda Octavia diesel and a Rover 25 automatic. Here we go now. Here we go. Ooh dear. Look at that. The GTI is stone dead last. I honestly thought that after the Mark IV, the Golf GTI would be dead. But, not for the first time, I was wrong. This is the latest version, the Mark V, and I'm delighted to report the fun is back. Memories I have from when I was 21, screaming down to the south of France because someone wanted to swim, blasting to the Alps because someone wanted to fall over, staying up till dawn. There was always a GTI in the picture somewhere, and this one reminds me of it all. This makes a very fat, very middle-aged man feel young again. Of course, the car has grown up a bit. I mean, I've got air conditioning now and power steering for my weak arthritic arms, but the essence of the fun is still there. Of course, with all the new equipment and the new safety stuff, it's twice the weight of the original. But with a gem of a 2-litre turbo engine, it has twice the power. You actually get 197 brake horsepower, which means you're carried on a bassy, meaningful roar all the way from 0 to 60 in 7.2 seconds. Even a Rover 25 manual isn't that fast. Round the bends, though, it's even more impressive. Right, let's turn the traction control off. That's something we never had in the original, and see what's what. Here we go. Just go into any corner at any speed, and this chassis just copes. It's brilliant. Tyres are begging for mercy. Back wheels in the air. It's like driving a small, excitable dog. I mean, I know it's front-wheel drive and everything, but it's just a riot. What were they doing with those old Golfs? Why did they make them so boring if they knew how to do this? In a straight line, you'll be hammering along at 147 miles an hour, and people watching will be wondering, how? You need a trained eye to spot the little details that mark this out as a GTI. The roof spoiler, the flat steering wheel bottom, the tartan seats. Mostly it just looks like a Golf, and at less than £20,000 it's a bargain as well. This then is the obvious hatchback to drive through the pearly gates. And now I want you to meet a very special driver. Russ Swift. He's a precision driving champion, and what I've asked him to do is get rid of this Metro. So why, you may be wondering, are we in a car park? Well, those of you who are as old as me may well remember a film called The Driver, in which Ryan O'Neill has to demonstrate what a superb helmsman he is by smashing a Mercedes into as many pillars and walls as he can without breaking the car in such a way that it won't work anymore. And that is what Russ is going to try and do with this Metro. Easy. In fact, I'm going to have a go myself. Obviously, I'm going to wear a helmet and I'm going to drive something more substantial than a Metro, but I'm going to have 70 accidents, all of them huge, and then I'm going to drive home in the car afterwards. Here we go. Oh. No. That didn't work. That didn't work, and now the car's on fire. So I'll probably step out now. That's what I'm going to do with the fire and everything. I'm going to step out. Yeah, that didn't go well. But at least the Toyota is now on its way to hell, where it will be joined by this, the Citroën 2CV. This little car was designed to do two things. The designers were told that the suspension must be soft and the that, there must be lots of headroom. This way, a French farmer would be able to drive across the ploughed field without breaking any of the eggs he may have on the passenger seat while wearing a hat. For a while, the car was indeed bought by French farmers, but eventually it became the company car of choice for the veg-head anti-nuclear mob, who got it into their heads that it was kind to the environment. They couldn't have been more wrong, because it was built from used Algerians in an asbestos factory, and its weedy, useless little engine ran on rat poison and acid. In its time, this ghastly little car has killed more whales than the Norwegians, and it's burrowed a bigger hole in the ozone layer than 1 million air conditioning units. And there was no upside. It was slow, ugly, ungainly, and incapable of going round any corner without falling to pieces. Now you see what's happened here? What did anybody see in it? I've turned it off, it won't stop, it's still killing the planet. Stop it! The engine's going to be on forever. Oh no, I'll stall it. What a car. I'm going to send this thing to hell in the only way it understands. Yep, I think it's got the message. Something very strange occurred to me the other day when I was driving along in one of these Corvettes. I thought, for no reason, crikey, this is quite good. It was a big surprise. You see, the Americans have never ever been able to make a car at all. I mean, it's just not in their nature. They're rubbish at it. Everything was built down to a price and to the nearest foot. And the cars they've never been able to make most of all are sports cars, like the Corvette. All Corvettes, all of them for the last 50 years or so, have been the same. Very pretty, but just shiversomely awful, rattly, nasty, vomit-inducing rubbish. On the face of it, this one seems to be more of the same. You've got a live rear axle, like you've got in a Triumph Herald from the 60s, a 5.7-litre V8 that produces the same amount of power as a European food mixer, and a price tag of just £45,000. That's worryingly low. If you price something that low, you just can't help thinking, hang on a minute, there's something wrong here. It's like own-brand baked beans or one of those CD players from a company you've never heard of. And now, of course, they're shoving the Chevrolet badge on what we used to call Daewoo's. Great. The thing is, though, the new Corvette, is very, very fast. And not just in a straight line. It's also fast when you go round corners. So much grip. This is actually a Corvette you can have fun with. You really can. Slightly annoying health and safety traction control that seems to have a mind of its own even when you've turned it off, but you can get around that. Like that. Here we go. A lot of smoke there, you see. You might even call it nimble. In fact, I will call it nimble. And it makes a good noise. And you'd never, ever, ever get bored with that head-up display. Look at it! Oh, I'm sorry, officer, that I ran over the old lady, but she was obscured by my rev counter. Actually, the best thing on this HUD are the little numbers at the bottom of the screen there. That gives you a lateral G readout. How big an accident are you going to have trying to make those numbers as big as possible? Come on! The gearbox isn't much cop, but other than that, I like the noise, I like everything. It's a funny car, this. I mean, it's a Corvette, so obviously it's rubbish, but you can't work out why. I actually like it. It's sporty, but it still feels like a proper muscle car. The question is, how does it fare in the Cold War against its Russian rival? Last year, TVR was bought by a Russian business boy who wanted to make the cars easier to drive and easier to live with. It sounds then like he wanted to remove some of the old-fashioned blood and guts brutality, but I'm delighted to say he's failed. This is the Sagaris, in essence a wider, faster version of the T350. On the face of it, it seems like business as usual then. You have a 4-litre straight-six engine under the bonnet, a chunky 5-speed gearbox, rear-wheel drive, a plastic body, and a big noise. Old TVRs were a bit like old American cars, really. You always got the impression they were at their happiest going in a dead straight line, barking. And this one does that very well. But it does something else as well. Their handles. Of course, with 400 brake horsepower under the bonnet and a car that only weighs 1,100 kilograms, it can still kill you. But unlike any other TVR I've ever driven, this one doesn't feel like it actually wants to. The ride's good, so you're not being shaken to pieces. The brakes are fantastic, and you've got very quick steering, but not so quick that it catches the back end napping. Any criticism at all is you slightly run out of suspension travel at the rear, but that's it. The thing is, though, that none of the lunacy has been lost. I love the slashes down the wings. I love the lunacy of the dash. I love the sideways exhaust systems. And I love the price. It's just £55,000, which is good. But it is £10,000 more than the Corvette. So, which is the best here then? Which will win the battle of the muscle cars? Well, to help us find out, I've given the Corvette to the Stig. Fantastic, this. Kentucky takes on Blackpool. Here we go. Oh no, it's a rubbish start. The Corvette's roared off into an early lead. Reeling him in. I've got him. I've got him. Goodbye, Mr. Stig. It's coming up at 150 miles an hour there. Nice. So that's one up for the TVR, and now let's have some one-lap qualifying with the Stig. Right, here we go. He's got the traction control off, obviously. Takes about 3.5 weeks to work out where the button is. There he is into the first corner now. Look how he works at the wheel, Stig. Really tries his hardest. Kicking up a bit of dust, running very wide now as he really belts down to the big, tight left-hander. Probably up to about 120, 130 miles an hour, hard on the big brakes, turning. Look at that, it's very smooth. Little dab of opposite lock to try and keep him out of the grass verge, and another one. He's actually got the roof off, which will affect the aerodynamics and slow him down, but here he is coming up to the line, and it's 36 seconds. Now, here we are, in the TVR. Absolute pig to get off the line, this. Too little revs, you hardly move at all. Too many, and you just sit there with the wheels spinning like a washing machine on its final spin cycle. He's already going down that back straight again, I suspect. Well, we already know it's faster than the Corvette. Hard on those brakes, no anti-lock, of course, in the TVR. You don't get airbags, you don't get any safety equipment whatsoever, no traction control, nothing. Not going to bother the Stig, of course, though. Here he is, powering up, 36 seconds to beat. Is he going to make it? 31, 32, here he comes! 34! The TVR's won it. So the winner is the TVR. Except it isn't, because actually the winner comes from the land down under. Now at this point you're thinking, that's a Vauxhall, but don't be too sure. I know it says Vauxhall on the back, but underneath the badge this is a Holden, which is from Australia. And then underneath the bonnet we find a 6-litre version of the 5.7-litre V8 we've just seen in the Corvette. Think of this car then as the English-speaking world coming together and showing everyone else what exactly is what. In many ways, it puts me in mind of the old Aston Martin Vantage. There's the same sense of bigness which comes from the sheer size of the thing and these enormous sofas that you kind of sink into. And there's the same sense of kind of endless, lazy V8 oomph. This huge engine doesn't even produce 300 brake horsepower, but you get more than 500 pounds-feet of torque. When you put your foot down, nothing much happens. The speedo just starts to climb. But then it keeps on climbing at the same rate, all the way to 180 miles an hour. That's 180 in a Vauxhall. And then there's the handling. It doesn't have the savagery of the TVR or the sophistication of the Corvette. A jack of all trades, really. And a master of one. Power slides. I know of no other car which can paint such enormous lines on the tarmac and fill the air with such a rich aroma of burned rubber, and it never ever spins. Well, maybe once. And unlike any of the other muscle cars that we've seen, in this one, your family can come too. Ready? How do you like that, kid? A genuine 4-seater, and it's even got a big boot. And you can buy one of these things now, albeit with the original 5.7-litre engine, for less than 30,000 quid. And that really is a lot of tail slide action. Really a very small amount of money. This then is my favourite muscle car, the one I'd buy. So now we must do a test. How does the best muscle car compare to the best sports saloon? This 6-litre Vauxhall costs £37,000, and for that, you can have a Mitsubishi Evo 8 400. So let's put the two together on the track and see which is faster. Oh, I'm making a bit of smoke, but I'm off the line first. Oh, it's wild through there. Wild, but not as fast as the Mitsubishi. Now you see, here's the problem. He's got 40% more power than me, 400% more talent than me, and his car weighs about 3 million tons less. But I reckon I'm having more fun than he is, to be honest, in my canal boat. Come on, Vauxhall. Never thought I'd be saying that. Sports saloons are quicker than muscle cars by a lot. So, if you want to have fun when you're going fast, buy the Vauxhall. If you just want to go fast, get yourself an Evo. And if you want to go really fast, then let me introduce you to the new boy, the Mitsubishi Evo 9. In essence, it's the same as an Evo 8, but they've changed the turbo to give more torque, they've fitted new rear springs to make it lower, and they've thrown away the heavy spare tyre and replaced it with nothing. Right, here goes. Ooh, that's fast! Certainly, it's a lot faster than the Perodua Calisa, which we bought earlier, and which, as you can see, is now hanging. Thing is, though, this isn't really killing it quite as spectacularly as I'd hoped. So, sticking with the medieval theme that we saw earlier with the jousting, I'm now going to try a bit of drawing. If you take it up, Mr. Crane Driver, what we've got attached to the front of it there is a 1-ton weight. Now, this is a lot of stress for our car. Brand new car, 1 ton hanging on it. Come on. Come on. Come on. Oh, it's gone! It's gone! That seems to have pulled the bonnet off the front cross member. Oh, yes. Still, that's nothing that can't be fixed with 4 sticks of dynamite and a match. Ready? It has ceased to exist. I have quite literally blown it to hell. And now it's time to look at some of the absolute best new cars from the last 12 months. Obviously, this is the big one, the new Aston Martin V8 Vantage. This was designed to be the first proper Aston sports car for 40 years or more. It was designed to be a rival for the 911. It was designed to suck children into its intakes and breathe fire. So instead of a smooth, long-legged V12, what you get in this is a punchy, aggressive V8. Starts out in life as the 4.2 from a Jag, but then it's enlarged and worked on at Aston's engine plant in Germany. The result is 4.3 litres. The result of that is 380 brake horsepower. And the result of that is 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds and a top speed of 186. Sounds fine, but there is a problem. You see, they could have made the engine in this car more powerful, but if they'd done that, this would have been quicker than the DB9, which is £20,000 more expensive. So in other words, what they've done is artificially slow it down. And when you're driving it, you can tell. I'm not going to call it slow, that would be ridiculous. But by the same token, I'm not going to call it fast either. When you put your foot down, you think, yeah, but where is it? Surely there should be more than this. There will be one day when they do the Vantage version, the sort of Vantage squared, but for now... There are some other problems too. Under the skin, this car has DB9 suspension, and inside you get a 2-seat replica of the DB9 as well. Same switches, same dials, same everything. It sounds like they built this car using what was available rather than what they wanted. And then they were told by the marketing department to ensure it wasn't too powerful. Sounds bad, and there's more. Not only is a Porsche 911 faster and less expensive, but on the road, it's better to drive. It has slightly better brakes, slightly better turning, slightly better traction. I'm not saying the Aston's bad, it's brilliant in fact, but it's not quite as brilliant when the going gets twisty as its 40-year-old rival. And you know what? I don't care. I don't care one tiny little bit. I mean, what does it matter if it's not quite as nippy as a 911? Who cares if the dashboard looks too like a DB9? I mean, that's like criticising someone for looking too like Uma Thurman. And wouldn't you just listen to it? When you're cruising, it's quiet and serene and not even slightly embarrassing. But when you put your foot down, little valve in the exhaust flicks open straight through, and the noise is amazing. I did a test the other day, and I found that you could hear this car from 2 miles away. 2 miles! You could be driving home, your wife hears you, puts the kettle on. Cup of tea ready when you walk through the door. And it's not just the noise either, because just look at this thing. It is stunning. And best of all, of course, it's an Aston Martin. So, in conclusion then, it's nearly as good as a 911 to drive, and it's better than everything at everything else. Or is it? The Ferrari 612 Scaglietti is a car I didn't want to like. I was unsure about the styling, especially the piggy little headlamps. I thought that at £183,000 it was also way too expensive, and when I saw it for the first time I thought it was too big as well. But then I drove it.